hardest part of my job is the first 15 minutes I'm on stage and scripting out the first 15 minutes so that I can do what I can to make a connection to the audience. If that goes well, when that goes well, right? Then truth be told, the rest of the event is a lot easier and I get to just focus on having fun and being friends with them.
What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning into the Why Influence podcast, where we interview influencers about their why and their motivation for influencing. I'm your host, Jeremy Siegel. Today, our guest is Devon Brown. Devon is one of the world's most skilled event MCs. He's shared the stage with people like Tony Robbins, Russell Brunson, Dean Graziosi. Devon is living his truest self, and I hope you're pumped for this one. Without giving any more spoilers, let's jump into the interview.
Welcome to the Why Influence podcast, where we deep dive into the why behind some of the world's most influential people. Why do you influence? Why are you an influencer? We hope to inspire you to share your voice with the world. And now, your host, Jeremy Siegel.
All right, Devon, thanks for coming on the show. Before we jump into your why, I'd like to ask a few questions so our audience can learn a little bit more about you.
Sure, happy to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about your personal and professional background, what you did before becoming an event MC?
Sure. So, hey, everybody, my name is Devon Brown. As Jeremy said, I am a professional event MC. Before that, I had a number of jobs. I actually graduated from college at the top of my class. I got my degree in sport management. I thought I was going to be Jerry Maguire. But as it turns out, that was not in the cards for me. I failed miserably at trying numerous different home business opportunities over the years. I did everything from teach Taekwondo. I have a 3rd degree black belt in Taekwondo, to selling cars. And yeah, so I've done quite a few things. But my background as it sits right now is, as you know, I'm a professional event MC, but I also, I have so much experience in internet marketing and internet home businesses that the other thing that I do is I actually help internet home business entrepreneurs who are just starting out. So that's a quick little, 1-minute background on me.
All right. So before becoming an MC or before your first MC event that you did, what kind of influence did you have? What did your social media numbers look like, or how many LinkedIn connections did you have, or what did your circle of influence look like before starting emceeing?
Well, my circle of influence was mostly limited to my email list and the people who were home business entrepreneurs who were on my email list and who followed me on Facebook. My Facebook was in the 4,000 to 5,000 range. I didn't really have Instagram. But it was mostly just my email list, and my influence was limited to this people who were specifically interested in learning how to make money online, doing what we call affiliate marketing, which is simply selling other people's products. There wasn't, if I'm being honest, the internet marketing stuff was not me living my truest and best self, living into my truest and best self. It was more so something that I thought I could do to make money with. And so I started doing it. And as I said, I failed miserably at it. And then as I got going and got more experience, I ended up, kind of cracking the success code on that. And so I stayed in that industry to just kind of help people find shortcuts that I wish somebody had showed me all those years ago. But all that being said, the truth of the matter is that once I started getting involved in the MC stuff, which truth be told, my first time MCing was around 2005, 2006, and it kind of happened by accident. But once I started really living into that, that's when things started changing drastically for me, influence-wise.
Awesome. So why did you make it you talked about how you're not living your truest self, just trying to make ends meet or make money or to help people with showing them how you did what you did. What made you decide that emceeing is you being your truest self, or why did you start emceeing?
So the whole MC thing happened on accident. Now, I'm going to back up for a second. I'm going to tell you guys a little story. And I think this is important to anybody and to any and everybody out there, because my guess is that each and every one of you listening, you have something inside you that wants to come out. And in life, what I would suggest is that the purpose of life is to figure out what inside you needs to be sung and to sing it. And that's the purpose of life, is to be honest about what's inside you and to sing it and to let it out. And it's scary to do that sometimes. And so back in 2005, I was selling cars. I was listening to a lot of personal development stuff. And I was involved in a lot of home-based businesses. And this was right at about a transition period in my life where I was about to quit selling cars and go out on my own again, fail miserably, and then end up finding an internet marketing mentor, a guy who was making money in an internet home business. But I bring up this point of my life in 2005 to say this. I was listening to some personal development thingy, some guru expert guy, and he posed a question to me. And the question was, if I gave you $10 million a year at the beginning of every year, and the only catch is that in order for you to receive this $10 million a year, you have to spend 60 hours a week doing something that you absolutely love and that you would do for free, what would you do? And he went on to say, don't go to your brain for the answer, go to your heart for the answer. And what is the first answer that comes to your heart? And the first answer that came to my heart was that I wanted to be some kind of combination of MC Hammer meets Tony Robbins. That's the answer my heart gave me. My heart said, Devon, MC Hammer meets Tony Robbins. I want to be on stage. I want to be dancing. I want to be educating people. I want to be edutaining people in my own way. And back then, by the way, I was a hip hop dancer, and I used to dance at nightclubs 5 nights a week for 10 years. But that was the answer my heart gave me. And when my heart said MC Hammer meets Tony Robbins, my brain immediately chimed in and said, that's stupid. That's not a thing. And so I kind of put that on the back burner. Fast forward a few months, at the end of 2005, I end up finding a job. I quit selling cars. I try to make money on my own again, and I fail miserably again. And I end up meeting this internet marketing guy who would become my mentor, who I would go to work for. And about 3 months into working for this guy, Jeremy, you familiar with the book Chicken Soup for the Soul?
Yeah.
Okay, it was written by Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen. Well, back then, Mark Victor Hansen used to have these events called mega events. He had like mega speaker if you wanted to be a speaker, mega book if you wanted to be an author, mega marketing if you wanted to get better at marketing. And my boss at the time, he said to me, hey, Devon, he said, I'm going out to Mark Victor Hansen's event. We're going to have a booth outside of we're going to be a vendor. Like we're going to have a booth outside of the main seminar room, so that when people come outside of the seminar room, they swing by our booth and we can, get new clients. Are you interested in coming and working the booth? And I said, oh my God, I would absolutely love to. That would be a dream to be associated with an event like that and just to be part of it. And so I flew out to LA with my boss. And I'd been, like I said, working for him for about 3 months. And the second day of the event, I'm sitting at the booth by myself. My boss is at lunch and this woman comes up to me and she says, excuse me, young man. Where's Matt, my boss? She says, where's Matt? And I said, I don't know, lady. And she says, well, call him and get him here now because Mark Victor Hansen's about to call him on stage. And so I call my boss and I text my boss like 14 times. And this woman comes back 5 minutes later. I wasn't able to get in touch with him. This woman comes back 5 minutes later. She says, where is he? And I said, I don't know, lady. I've called him and texted him 14 times. I think he's at lunch with somebody and his phone must be off. She says, Mark Victor Hansen's about to, and this woman, by the way, is Mark Victor Hansen's assistant. So this woman says, he needs to get here right now. Mark Victor Hansen's about to call him on stage. And I said, well, lady, I don't know what you want me to do. She said, do you know his elevator pitch? I said, woman, what the heck is an elevator pitch? And she yells at me. She's like, do you know what he's going to be speaking about at his breakout session tomorrow? And I said, She said, get on stage. I said, okay. And so I run in the room, and there's like about 700 people at this seminar. And I run in the room just as my boss, or just as Mark Victor Hansen is calling my boss to the stage. Now, just for a quick point of reference here, I'm a black dude. And back then, I'm 6'2", and back then I was maybe 140, 150 pounds. My boss is a chubby white dude. I tell you this to say that we look nothing alike. We look nothing alike. And so my boss, or my Mark Victor Hansen says, welcome to the stage, Matt, and flashes his picture up on the screen. And the skinny little black kid runs up on stage, and Mark Victor Hansen looks at me like, who the hell are you? It's just like the look on his face. And I grabbed the mic from him and I turned to the crowd, and don't ask me what I said, but I spoke for all of 2 minutes and I got a standing ovation. And Mark Victor Hansen covers the microphone. I hand it back to him. He covers the microphone. He says, "Young man, you are going to be one of the top 10 speakers in the world in the next 10 years. And my boss found out about what happened. And he said, "Hey, Devon, whatever you said to the crowd, say it again and introduce me tomorrow." I said, "Okay, cool, whatever." So next morning, I introduced my boss on stage, and we did quite well. And he says, "Devon, anytime we do an event, you are going to have the microphone." And I said, "Okay, that's cool, no biggie." And I was the MC for all of our in-house events, which we were doing, probably 10 of them a year back then. And that's how I started emceeing. It wasn't by choice. It was kind of by accident. That was a really long answer, but hopefully that gives you some background.
It's an awesome story.
I fell into it. Yeah.
So Devon, before we move further into this, do you mind sharing what kind of influence or impacts a person that's an MC can have at an event?
Absolutely. So, and this is something I didn't realize at the time. I'm going to put it to you like this. When I started emceeing more full time, which is probably around 2015. So I emceed for my boss 2005, 2006, 2007, a little bit into 2008. And I never wanted to be an MC. I always wanted to be a speaker, right? I always wanted to be like, I want to be a keynote speaker because that's the pinnacle. That's the thing that you always want to grow to be. And so I never really pursued the MC stuff. Between 2009 and 2014, I probably did 10 gigs. That was just because people, a few friends of mine who were putting on events knew who I was. Anywho, I started getting more and more gigs around 2015, 2016, but I really didn't want to be an MC because in my mind, being a speaker was a more prestigious role in an event. And somebody said to me, he says, "Devon, let me ask you a question." He said, "Who is the very first person the audience sees at an event?" And I'm like, "The MC." He says, "Who is the very last person the audience sees at an event?" I said, "The MC." He said, "Other than the person whose event it is, who is on stage more than anybody else at an event?" I was like, "Oh my God, the MC." He said, "If you are on stage for that long, you mean to tell me," He's like, "I understand that you don't just want to be a carnival barker. I understand that you just don't want to go on stage and just read Welcome to the Stage to Bob Smith." He said, "But if you're on stage that much, don't you think that if you use that time wisely, there's a way for you to not just have fun with the crowd and bring people to the stage properly, but also have a positive influence on them, impact on them?" And then that completely shifted my mindset. And that's when I really started embracing the whole MC thing, because I realized that the MC is the person who, other than the person whose event it is, has the ability to impact the crowd more than anybody else, because that MC is the very first person the crowd sees in the morning, the very last person they see at night, the person they see in between every speaker, and the person that they see the most, other than the person whose event it is.
All right. So then what kind of impact do you try to have when you're emceeing an event?
I try to have, so I'm big into personal development and self-growth, like I'm guessing a lot of your listeners are. And so the impact that I try to have on them is multifold. The first impact, and my first job as an MC, is to help them get the most out of the event. So I do that because I've been to so many events. I've learned some tricks of the trade. And when I'm on stage, one of the things I do is I try to tie everything together to help the event make more sense for people. I'm the through line to the entire event. The other thing that I do is I get them excited about learning, and I get them excited about the next speaker. So I was at an event recently, a few months ago, for dentists. And somebody came up to me after I had introduced one of the speakers to the stage. Now, by the way, I know nothing about dentistry. I had introduced one of the speakers to the stage, and somebody came up to me afterwards, and he said to me, he said, "Devon, I have heard this guy speak a dozen times. He is the most boring speaker ever in the history of the world. But the way you introduced him made me excited to hear from him. And I actually perked up and listened to him and learned something new when I was all prepared to just tune out." And so it was really powerful to be able to have that influence to get the audience excited about listening and learning. And then last but not least, the impact and influence that I can have on a crowd is by sharing my own personal stories. You see, most of the events I do are filled with audience members who are looking to improve themselves or their business in some way, shape, form, or capacity, right? Whether it's an internet marketing crowd or a women's weight loss crowd or a group of dentists who are looking to grow their businesses, all of those people are looking to grow themselves, which is right up my alley. And so what I get to do and what I've learned is that the stories that I share while I'm on stage are applicable regardless of the niche or regardless of the area of interest. So I get to have fun with them and also share influential and impactful stories to help them learn new truths and insights with regard to their own journeys. So that's pretty cool.
That is cool. I mean, a lot of events I've been to at MC is just introducing people and not being as interactive or not sharing as many of their personal stories. And I think it's awesome that you had this realization that an MC is the first person on the stage, the last person on the stage, has the most stage time, and it's somewhere where you can actually be more flexible if you're more engaging and bring in stories and have a lot of talk time and impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so one of the neat things that I get to do is that because I've done so many events, like the majority of my business comes from somebody seeing me on stage at another event. And so they see me on stage, and often the people who I'll MC for, it's their first event. And so they'll say, hey, Devon, we want to run everything by you. We'll want to run the schedule by you. And because they're running the schedule by me, I have time to say, hey, from my experience, it'll be great if you give me a little bit of extra time here to connect with the crowd in such and such a way. And so it's gotten to the point where I can actually build in time for myself to impact the crowd in a positive way, which is really, really awesome, in a way that serves the audience and serves the event and serves the people putting on the event and serves my own need to give as well.
So you really have impact on a lot of things. You're impacting the event structure. You're impacting the speakers and building their confidence up. You're impacting the audience by perking them up and making them listen better to the speakers. And on top of that, you're impacting them with anything that you're sharing and saying.
Correct. Exactly. And again, to think that it's nothing I ever wanted to do. And here's the funny thing, going back to something I mentioned earlier. Back in 2005, when I was listening to that personal development audio, and they asked the question about the $10 million a year. And the first thing that popped into my heart, not my head, my heart, was that I wanted to be some sort of MC Hammer meets Tony Robbins. I did not equate that to being an MC, and I'm sure that the majority of the people listening don't know who I am. And if you go to devonbrown.com, not to plug, but just to make a point, if you go to devonbrown.com, and you click on where it says event MC, you'll see me on stage, and you'll see that one of the things that I get to do on stage a lot with the crowd is dance. And so I think it's neat that as an MC, I literally, at almost every event I go to, I get to dance hip hop with the crowd and then pivot right into some kind of personal development talk and then have fun with them and introduce whoever is next on the docket, right? Whoever's the next speaker. And so I get to do this whole fun dance in front of a crowd, dance with the crowd, MC Hammer thing, and this whole Tony Robbins thing simultaneously, which is something that I never thought in a million years was actually a thing or could be a thing.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations, by the way, because you talked earlier about how that was a dream of yours, and then you told yourself, no, that can't be a thing. And now you're actually living your truest self in that situation.
Correct. And the lesson there is that, to everybody listening, if your heart is telling you to do something, right? If you're hiding behind your computer screen, if you're hiding because you're scared to follow the message that's within your heart, a huge part of having the courage to do this is having a lot of faith and trusting that if you just listen to the message that's in your heart and move forward the best way you think you know how, with the understanding that you have no clue what the heck it's going to look like, and you're okay not knowing what it's going to look like, you're just going to walk in the direction you think you will walk, that is when the magic happens. Because today I get to do things like recently Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins, and Russell Brunson, who are three of the biggest names in business marketing and personal development, invited me out to MC an online web training in front of 200,000 people. And I'm going to say something here real quick. Again, I got called by Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins and Russell Brunson to fly out to MC an online training. Now, the reason I bring this up is because emceeing an online training is not a thing. And I said that to Dean Graziosi's office. I said, what do you mean you want me to come out there and MC an online training? That's not a thing. And they said, you're right, Devon, it's not a thing. But we love what you do on stage so much, we're going to make it a thing for you. And I'm like, oh my, that kind of magic comes from being willing to listen to and follow your heart, which I was unwilling to do for the first 7, 8, 9, 10 years. My heart told me what it wanted.
Wow. That's amazing. So did you actually do that one, or is that in the pipeline?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I did that one a couple months ago. It was awesome. It was just like me, Dean, Graziosi, Tony Robbins, and like we were the only 4 people on camera. It was like a really small, like private thing. It was cool. I posted pictures on my social media. It was awesome.
How did it feel? I mean, what was that experience like?
It was a little surreal. It was a little surreal because it came out of left field, and I wasn't expecting it. But what it was more than anything was confirmation that your heart knows the answers and your brain doesn't know squat. That's really when I was sitting there in the studio in Arizona. And Tony Robbins walks in, and it's just like there's only a handful of us there and the staff, and we're practicing and we're going on and off camera and stuff like that. The only thing I'm thinking to myself is, never in a million years would I have imagined being invited or being a part of something like this. But because I decided to lean into my gifts, to my magic, to my gift, that allows me to, and I was just, honestly, I became really, really grateful. That's probably the best way to describe it. I just became really, really grateful.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, going back a couple steps, because we got carried away with.
Sorry about that.
No, it's in a good way, because I like to diving deeper into that, because that's a huge, victory down chasing your passions and living your truest self and following your dreams. So congratulations on having that opportunity and fulfilling on it.
Thank you.
Let's focus on the emceeing. When you were getting started with emceeing, and I know you sort of fell into it by accident, but did you have any personal or physical barriers to overcome to become an MC, aside from the realization and maybe the opportunities to get that to come up? Did you have any kind of personal or physical barriers that you had to overcome to become an MC?
My biggest barrier was the stigma that I had in my mind associated with emceeing, thinking that emceeing was less than speaking, and not realizing that there's a lot of speaking that goes on when you MC. So let me kind of tell you how it happened. I stopped working for my boss around 08, 09. And like I said, I didn't do many gigs between 09 and 2014, 2015. What happened in 2015 as I was running my internet marketing business, just kind of minding my own business. And Russell Brunson, who's this big name internet marketer who has this company called ClickFunnels. He's probably one of the biggest names in internet marketing, right now. Russell Brunson, who I had, by the way, introduced at one of our events back in 06, 07. Russell and I were buddies, and Russell calls me up and he's like, or he hits me up on Facebook. He's like, hey, Devon, what are you doing next weekend or next week? And I'm like, I don't know, just nothing, being awesome. He's like, I have 600 people coming to Las Vegas for an event called Funnel Hacking Live. Do you still MC events? And I was thinking to myself, well, I don't really MC events. I've only done a handful of them over the past couple of years. It's not really what I want to do. And then he was like, and before you say no, I'll pay for everything and we're going to go race Ferraris and you can come race Ferraris with us. I was like, absolutely. I MC events. I'm totally in. And so I went to MC his event and I got some really good feedback, and they're like, hey, are you coming next year? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, I guess. And I went back and I did it the next year, and the event had grown from like 600 people to 1,100 people. Well, what happened was a whole bunch of the types of people that Russell attracts are business owners and people who put on their own seminars in their own niche markets. And a bunch of those people saw me on stage and they were like, hey, Devon, we see you doing Russell's. Will you also do mine? And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, this is just an extra cash grab. I'll just do it. Yeah, it's like, I really don't want to do this for a living, but whatever, if you're willing to pay me, why not? So there, honestly, if I'm being completely honest, there were no real barriers to me doing it, because people would just come up and I would just kind of do it. I'm not going to say reluctantly because they were paying me. I was just like, okay, sure, whatever. It's not what I want to do for real, or at least that's what I thought. But I'll do it if you're paying me. I'll take the extra money. That's kind of how I fell into it. But then what happened was it ended up growing so much. That event that initially had 600 people in 2015 and 1,100 people in 2016 had, 1,500 people in 2017, 3,000 some odd people in 2018, and 4,500 people in 2019. And so here I am now on stage in front of 4,500 entrepreneurs, and the caliber of people who are speaking on those stages and are having me introduce them are the Dean Graziosi and the Brendan Bouchard types, who are now like, hey, Devon, come hang out with me at my event. And so to your question, I know that a lot of people have barriers. A lot of those barriers are like fear and stuff like that. Personally, I didn't, because it happened by accident. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. It was something that just kind of happened. And I just happened to keep saying yes to it because I needed the money, or I wanted the money. So that was it.
All right. That's great. So thinking back to who you were before getting more of a critical mass with Emcee'ing to who you are today, what would be some things that you would say that have changed about who you are or how you are? How have you changed through this journey? Or are there any transformations that have happened?
I think the biggest transformation is an internal one. And the internal transformation was an acceptance of the gift that's inside me and a willingness to share it. You know, one of the things that I came to realize quite a few years ago was that the reason I need y'all to really, really hear me on this, because I think one thing I've learned is that if I'm guilty of something, other people are guilty of it too. And I don't say that to throw stones. I say that because we're all human and we all have so much in common. One of the reasons that I got involved in the home business, make money online, internet marketing, affiliate marketing industry was because it was something that I thought I could make money with, but it was also something that I didn't love. And because I didn't love it, like, I mean, absolutely, my heart is yelling at me to do it. Because I didn't love it, that means that if I fail at it, it doesn't hurt. How many times do you enter into a venture that is not what your heart is calling you to do because you think you can make money at it, but deep, 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 deep down, you know that if you fail, it won't hurt your heart. One of the biggest areas of growth that I've had is an understanding that when I'm not willing to step into what's inside me and to live what's inside me and to sing the song that's inside me, I understand that that's just fear that occurs because I really care about what's inside me and I don't want to quote unquote fail. But the thing that I've learned is that the biggest failure is in not trying your best to live that gift. My biggest fear, and this is a realization that I've come to, my biggest fear is the fear of dying without having done everything in my power to live what's inside me. And once I understood that that's the thing that I'm most scared of, then the quote unquote failure didn't matter. What mattered was that I went for it and I shot my shot. So I hope that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's invaluable advice. So appreciate that.
No problem.
So you've been on stage with all these people. You've interacted with some influential people. Do you have any stories that have come up about people that have come to you and said how much of an impact you've had on them, maybe after an event or maybe unrelated to it or just aftermath that comes up?
Absolutely. And that is, by the way, one of the ways that you know you're living your gift and you're living your truth is people will come up and tell you. They'll say, you are doing exactly what you are supposed to be doing. It's like hearing Whitney Houston sing a song. It's like, okay, yeah, that's what she's supposed to be doing. Or watching Michael Jordan, play basketball. It's like, yep, that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Thank you for doing that. And just by the nature of you doing that, you are giving me a gift, right? Just by the nature of her singing. Even if I don't like her music, the fact that she's living Whitney Houston's music, which I do, I love Whitney Houston's music, but just as an example, just the nature of her singing is gives me a gift, whether I like her music or not, because I have to respect that essence coming through. But yeah, I have people come to me all the time, and every once in a while, I'll get a comment like, "Devon, your story about such and such impacted me more than any of the speakers." I tell the story that I told you guys earlier about how I just went on stage and was thrown on stage at the last minute. And I tell the story a little bit differently when I'm on stage. But when I tell that story, I will have people come up to me and say, that story impacted me more than anything that any of the other speakers said. Or I'll have like young black kids, young black men and young black women come up to me and say, oh my gosh, it is so amazing to see somebody who looks like me on stage. Believe it or not, I'll get that quite a bit. And they'll say just the fact that you're on stage makes me now believe that I can be on stage in whatever capacity I can be. I've actually had people come up to me and say, hey, Devon, I want to be an MC. And this, again, from a guy who did not think MC was the pinnacle, who thought MC was a stepping stone. I now have people, because apparently that's what I'm supposed to be doing, at least for now, people coming up to me and saying, hey, screw speaker, I want to be an MC. How do I be like you? And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Really? And so yeah, it's some of the awesomeness that really touches my heart.
That's awesome. That's really great stuff. That's awesome feedback too.
Yeah.
So through this journey of emceeing, have you ever struggled with motivation? I mean, I know it's something that's in your heart that you're bringing out and speaking out. So maybe it's something that you have self-motivation for, but are there any instances that you struggle to keep going, or is there any struggle with motivation in what you're doing?
The travel gets a little tiring at times. Going from city to, especially when I have back-to-back events, like I'm old enough to be aware of my limits, right? I'm 40 years old. I'm not in my 20s anymore. So my 20s, I'd have been like, I can do everything. And so now that I'm 40, I kind of understand my own personal limits, and I try to be cognizant of my time. And I understand that, when you're giving your all to an audience, that's very draining. And I try not to schedule back-to-back events, but sometimes it can't be avoided. And so I would say that the biggest thing is, when I'm traveling from airport to airport and I've got to go do this event for 3 days and my voice is hoarse, and then I got to go hop on a plane and go to this other city and live out of a hotel for another 4 days and do this other event, and then my voice is getting even more hoarse. That is a little bit sometimes where I'll be honest, it makes me appreciate my own home and my own bed. But by the same token, I do love it, and the motivation to give to the crowd is something that is always there the second I step on stage. It's something that, honestly, I think I would have to purposefully try to turn off, which I would never do, but I would have to purposely try to turn it off when I hit the stage. I don't know if I even could. So
okay, yeah, that's a good tip. I didn't see that coming, but the travel is a lot, and your voice getting hoarse. I mean, it's probably why Tony Robbins is, his voice is getting more hoarse as the years go on, because he talks so much.
Yeah.
Well, what's inspiring you most about the future? I mean, you've emceed an online event with 200,000 people. You've emceed all these awesome events. You're getting booked more and more. So what's something that you're looking forward to? What's inspiring you most about the future to come in regards to emceeing?
So one of the things I was recently at a women's empowerment event, which was a lot of fun to MC, by the way, because women are way more fun to MC than guys. Guys are boring. I'm generally speaking. Guys are boring. Women will get out there and they will dance and they will hoot and holler and have a good time, and that makes my job so much easier. But I'm at this women's event, and I realized the fun and the impact I was having, and what it made me really excited for was, it made me excited to think, wow, I just started leaning into this recently, and look how much it's grown, how much more could I do? How many more lives could I touch? How many more audiences could I impact if I actually made a conscious effort to go out there and market myself full time? Fun fact, I have never marketed myself as an MC. I have never, knock on wood, I've never asked for a gig in my life. I've never placed an ad. I've never made a phone call requesting a gig. Everything that I have done, and the fact that my schedule is booked, is simply and strictly word of mouth, which, by the way, is a clue that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, because it's happening effortlessly. When you are living in your essence, when you are living in flow, when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, not that there are not troubles, not that there are not hiccups, but things for the most part happen effortlessly because it is where you are supposed to be. And it is God or the universe or whoever you believe in making things line up for you. And so what I'm excited about was just this realization that, oh my gosh, this is who I get to touch and impact with virtually zero effort on my part. Imagine if I put effort into it and went out there and sought out the biggest events and sought out the events with the most impact and sought out the exact events I wanted with the exact type of audience that I felt like I had a message to give to. And I feel like I have the ability to do that right now. And I feel like the world is my oyster. I can literally choose whatever event I want. And I have, and thank God for my internet marketing skills, because I actually have the ability to go and target those events if I ever want to do that. And then I have the credibility and the footage of myself and the referrals and the social proof that I can add value to any event I want to step foot in. So I'm excited about the fact that with regard, and that's what I was going to say real quick. One of the neatest things is that because of the nature of what I do, everybody wants to be a speaker. You don't have a million people trying to be event MCs. One of the neat things is that I get to be a part of so many people's dreams and visions. I get to be a part of Dean Graziosi's dream and vision, which includes Tony Robbins and Russell Brunson. I get to be a part of Russell Brunson's vision and his touching how many tens of thousands of internet entrepreneurs. I get to be a part of Kaylin Poulin and Kaylin Poulin's vision with her desire to impact women's lives. Right, Michelle Bishop's movement with regard to her desire to impact women's lives. I get to sit there and say, what's a movement? Who are the big players in that movement impacting lives? And great, I can also throw a little bit of sexy on that movement as well, which is really cool.
Well, it's so inspiring. You just keep talking about how you're just living in flow. I loved that comment that you're just living in flow.
Yeah, that's how I know I'm doing the right thing, because it's not a struggle. And that's how you know you're doing the right thing. Like when you're doing something and the time just passes and you're doing it and it's almost effortless, and you look down and 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours have passed. That's a clue. That's a clue that you very well may be on the right path.
Right. So you've talked a lot about what you like about emceeing. So I just wanted to drill a little bit at it. Is there something that comes to mind as your favorite part about emceeing events? Like if you had to narrow it down, it doesn't have to be your favorite, but maybe one of the top things that you love about emceeing.
I'll say this. This is the scariest and best. This is the scariest and one of the best parts of emceeing events. The hardest part of emceeing an event and the scariest part of emceeing an event, and probably 60 to 70% of my work, goes into the first 15 minutes that I go on stage. Because the audience doesn't know me and I'm the first person they see. And so I've got a matter of seconds, maybe a minute or two, to connect with you and to make you like me, or at least like me enough to keep listening to me and give me a little bit of your time. I've got only a couple of minutes to connect with you. And that's scary. And so the hardest part of my job is the first 15 minutes I'm on stage and scripting out the first 15 minutes so that I can do what I can to make a connection to the audience. If that goes well. When that goes well, right? Then truth be told, the rest of the event is a lot easier, and I get to just focus on having fun and being friends with them. And so the scariest part is trying to nail that first time on stage. But whenever I do nail it, then I feel good. It's like this giant, it's off my shoulders. And then I can just really say, awesome, we're just going to have a good time and rock and roll this thing now.
Nice. And then you enter like a state of flow where you're just up there being
Right.
yourself.
Exactly. Because I've already connected with them and gotten permission from them to be me and given them permission to be themselves as well.
I like that. For someone who hasn't really put themselves out there, do you have any advice for someone like that who wants to build influence? I mean, usually, I guess in past episodes, I'm talking to like someone who has a YouTube channel and you've got like this MC, but it doesn't have to be specific to MC, but do you have any advice to someone who isn't putting themselves out there and how they can build more influence in whatever it is that they're trying to do?
All right. Well, let me ask you a question. What have you, from your other speakers, what have you heard? And I have a guess as to what it is, and I want to see if my guess is right. What have you heard is the biggest reason people don't put themselves out there?
I mean, the biggest one, which sometimes people just comment and then say something else, is you just got to get started, right?
Right. But the question is what keeps, and this is going out to all of you who are listening to this, what keeps people from getting started?
It's going to be confidence, barriers. I've talked to people about, you got to be vulnerable. So a lot of YouTubers struggled with making videos themselves. So they had to record themselves 20 times to get a short clip that they're comfortable with when they're first starting out. And then after time, they get more confident and also are willing to make more mistakes and be more vulnerable. Even for my podcast, the first 3 episodes, I re-recorded myself on every time that I spoke in those first 3 episodes. And I gave myself permission before starting to do that as my way to overcome my barrier of wanting to be a better interviewer. And then after that, I forced myself to be vulnerable and make mistakes. So none of it's edited after that.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So yeah, I want to say a couple of things with regard to getting started. Number one, people don't want perfect. They want authentic. That's one of the things that I've learned from being on stage. They don't want perfect. And then one of the things I've learned from making a gazillion videos, because I used to be like a video hoe. I used to do videos all the time back in my internet marketing business. People don't want perfect. They want authentic. So the more authentic you are, and the more real you are, the more people are going to respond. Number one. Number two, I know that there are some of you out there that are who are scared. Who are scared because when you put yourself out there, you open yourself up for criticism. Let me go ahead and just save you the suspense. Criticism is going to happen. It is part of the game. There are people whose job it is to sprinkle hate on you and to throw salt in your game. That is their job. No sense getting mad at them about it. That is their job. You got to be okay with that. Okay. And you also have to understand that very often when people do that, they say some offhanded comment, right? And they go about their day and you sit there fuming about it. And by the way, I'm speaking from personal experience. And then you sit there fuming about it for weeks and for months and wondering if you should keep doing what you're doing because some jackass criticized you and they've already moved on. And they haven't even given you a second thought. Just because somebody is the loudest doesn't mean that they're right. Often the people who love you and who you're impacting are the 95% of people who are quiet. Right. So don't let the small percentage of people who are and who are disrespectful ruin that for you. Number two. Number three, I used to be really, really shy around women. I used to never have a date. And one day, my buddy and I decided to my buddy who taught me how to talk to girls. He and I decided to quote unquote play a game. And the game was the person who says hi to the most women throughout the course of our day, hanging out together at lunch, going out clubbing, whatever, is the person who wins. Let me explain the importance of this. So often when we do an action, we are attached to the outcome of said action. I go up to this girl and I talk to her with the expectation or the anticipation or the desire to get her phone number. And if I don't get her phone number, that means I failed. And that's a bad thing, quote unquote. So what we decided to do was we decided to say, hey, you win just for saying hi. Who cares about the outcome? So what we did was we detached ourselves from the outcome and we made the goal the action, right? So if you're trying to put out if you're determined to put out a podcast, the goal is just to put out a podcast, not even to get anybody to listen to it.
Exactly.
Right? So what we did was we made the goal the action. And if you just do the action, regardless of the result, you win. And what ended up happening with that little experiment was I would just end up going up and talking to women just so I could win the bet for the day, win my $5 or whatever. And I would say hi with the full expectation that I was going to turn around and walk away because I didn't care what she said, but she would end up saying hi back. And I'd be like, excuse me? What? You're saying hi back? No. I just wanted to say hi and move about. But I ended up getting more dates than I could handle when I became detached from the outcome. And I want you to do the same thing in your business or in your desire to influence.
Yeah, that's great advice. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
So for people that are established in having some influence or some platform where they have influence, do you have any advice for them to maybe step up their game? It could be really on any specific topic that comes to mind, but someone who already has their platform, has followers, or has a community to engage with and has a level of influence, do you have any advice for them to sort of step up their game? Any secret sauce that you're doing that might apply to other situations?
What I would say, and this is something that I'm in the process of doing right now, is that if there is a message inside you and you are already established and you've already proven that your message can touch and impact lives, then if you don't share it with as many people as you can, you are ripping people off. There is somebody out there that needs to hear what you have to say. And if you don't do everything in your power to get your message out to them, then you are ripping them off. That's what I would say, is that imagine yourself before you had the information that you had now and the knowledge that you have now. What would you give to have somebody like you sharing that information, reaching out to you and giving you the knowledge that you know you need, touching you in whatever, impacting you in whatever way you know now that you need to be impacted? And how would you feel if you knew that this person, and this person over here had all of this knowledge and influence and impact and could positively change your life, but they refused to play big, and because they chose to stay small, their message never reached you? I hope that made sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So stop ripping people off. You got a message. This is basically what I would say.
Yeah, so once you narrow your message and you prove that it touches lives, then just get it to as many people as possible. Otherwise, you're ripping people off, and someone who needs to hear that isn't hearing it because you're not going big enough with it. You need to get your message out there.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your why. I'd like to end the episode by giving you an opportunity to talk about your brand or your social accounts, your website, your newsletter, anything else you'd like to share with our audience.
Sure. If you guys would like to follow me or learn more about me, you can reach me at devonbrown.com. That's DEVON, brown like the color.com, devonbrown.com, or on Instagram, it's _Devon, DEVON _Brown, _Devon_Brown on Instagram. And those will probably the two best ways to connect with me.
Awesome. Well, Devon, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey. I hope you have a great remainder of 2019. I look forward to seeing your influence keep on growing.
Thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate you inviting me, bro.
Well, that concludes this interview. Thanks so much for listening to the interview in its entirety. Devon, thanks again for coming on the show and being vulnerable with us and sharing your why. I think it's pretty amazing that Devon wanted to be MC Hammer meets Tony Robbins, edutaining people. He talked himself out of it for years, and fate finally kicked in, and his dream is finally becoming a reality. I mean, this is a true success story. After this conversation, I think we can all agree that the MC is the most influential person at an event, as long as the MC is someone who handles that situation appropriately. I think it's pretty amazing that Devon can influence people and inspire people just by being himself. If you ever met someone who's being their truest and most authentic self, then I think you can relate to the fact that that kind of energy is magnetizing and inspiring, and that's the type of energy that Devon gives off. I have to bring it up, but did you guys hear the size of the audience that Devon emceed when he did that live online event? 200,000 attendees. Can you imagine that? 200,000 live attendees, and he's emceeing that event. That's crazy. I talked to Devon a little bit after the interview, and he brought up a few things that I wanted to share with you guys. He said it was a weird feeling looking at the camera and knowing that 200,000 people are watching live on the other end. That's got to be a weird feeling. He also talked about how, being the MC for the event, he would have to ask questions to Tony Robbins and Russell Brunson and Dean Graziosi, and ask them questions that the audience is sending in. Devon said that there were so many questions coming in on the screen that it was just constantly scrolling. He literally couldn't make out people's names, couldn't read the questions that were being sending in. I mean, you got 200,000 people sending questions all at the same time to try to get them answered. So Devon just had to improvise in that situation. He said that he would just say like, "Oh, Katie from Nebraska, that's a great question. We'll get to that shortly. Hey, Jason from Texas, we'll be getting to that, so don't worry about that." And he would just improvise in the moment and completely make stuff up. And he pulled it off without anybody realizing. He had no idea the types of questions that were flowing in because it was just overwhelming. It's too many coming in. I'd like to make a point that Tony Robbins, Russell Brunson, Dean Graziosi, they all spent their entire careers building up credibility, building up their platform, building up their communities to get in front of audiences of that size. And I feel like Devon has really shortcutted his way to having this level of influencing by emceeing events for people like that. It's just an interesting path to gaining influence, and I think that Devon is on something here. I think it's pretty crazy that Devon just recently started taking emceeing seriously, and he hasn't really tried marketing it at all. He's a good marketer, so if he did choose to start doing paid ads and things of that nature, he's a very good internet marketer and he could drive a lot of traffic to it. But he hasn't had to, and he's already starting to get overwhelmed. And I just think it's going to be interesting to see who he becomes over the coming years. And I think that all of you guys could agree he deserves every opportunity that comes his way. He's just an amazing person. My favorite comment that Devon made is that he's living in flow. I've heard of getting into the flow state. It's usually for a short period of time, but I've never really thought about the concept of living in flow. And I think that's pretty powerful to me. It's just something that I'm going to think a lot about. Devon shared a ton of value with us, and I'm just going to reiterate a few points. He said that people don't want perfect, they want authentic. I think that's something worth thinking about. They don't want perfect, they want authentic. And that's something that Devon found to help him succeed at emceeing for events. If he can earn people's respect, be authentic on stage, then he doesn't need to be perfect and he can make those mistakes. Devon said that criticism is going to happen. It's part of the game. People have jobs to throw salt in your game, and you got to be okay with that. He said that 99% of the people who love you are going to be quiet, and then the ones that don't like you are going to be vocal and loud. So just keep that in mind. Even though people may be saying things that are negative towards you, there's going to be a lot of other people who are just staying quiet, who are liking the content that you're putting out there. Now, moving on to my journey here at the Why Influence podcast. After this interview with Devon, I realized that now I'm only 1 degree away from Tony Robbins, Russell Brunson, and Dean Graziosi. That's pretty awesome. I'm just going to plant the seed because why not? Devon, if you're still listening, I'd love to bring one of those guys onto the podcast one day. Maybe it doesn't have to be now because it's early in the podcast, but one day I would like to tap into some of your network and bring some of those giant influencers onto the podcast and extract their why and share that with the world. Moving on to some self-reflections, I thought I did a pretty good job letting the conversation get off track and out of order. Devon was just organically going through the motions and sharing his stories, and it sort of set things out of order. And I thought it did a good job just improvising and making the conversation flow. I feel like my energy and the expressed enthusiasm that I have isn't as high as I feel like it should be. As they would say in Toastmasters, I need to work on my vocal variety. It's easy to see how much I lack in this when I'm interviewing someone as dynamic and passionate and energetic as Devon. So I appreciate Devon just being an inspiration to me as far as how much energy and enthusiasm he brings to his communication style. This was an amazing interview. I hope you guys agree. I hope to bring Devon on again in 6 months to a year after he's a little bit more established in his emceeing career to see how his journey is going and see what kind of barriers he's having to overcome or see if his why is changing. He's so early in his journey of being an event MC, and I'd like to capture some of his journey. And that's it. If you're new here, then please hit the subscribe button. If you're a returning listener and you haven't already, please leave an iTunes review. Those reviews help us get bigger and better guests. So just please go to iTunes and leave us a review. It really does help us out. It makes a big difference. If you want to learn more about Devon, then you can go to our show notes page. It's whyinfluence.com, whyinfluence.com, episode 12. That's Devon's interview. And you'll be able to see everything about him there. After I do 30 interviews, I'm going to be doing a live stream interview with Nathan. So Nathan's going to be interviewing me about how the podcast is going. So if you want to be part of that live stream experience and be able to ask questions to me on the live stream, then the best way to be notified of when that's going to happen is to subscribe to our newsletter. If you go to our website, scroll to the bottom, you can subscribe to our newsletter, and we'll send out an announcement for when that live stream is going to happen, because I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't have 30 episodes recorded yet. Aside from that, I really appreciate you sticking to the end and listening to this podcast episode in its entirety. Devon, thanks again for coming on the show, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.